The chandelier above her head was a constellation of 1,000 crystal teardrops, each one catching the wa-aram amber light and splintering it into 1,000 tiny rainbows. Elena watched them dance on the marble floor, a fleeting, beautiful distraction from the sea-ring ache in her lower back. Her hands, red and raw from hours of scrubbing, were submerged in a sink of tepid, greasy water. The scent of expensive champagne and truffle oil, once a novelty, was now a nauseating perfume that clung to her uniform and her hair. She was a ghost in the corner of the ballroom, a silent servant in a sea of silk and diamonds. This was the annual Sterling Charity Gala, a night where the city's elite gathered to flaunt their wealth and write off their tax liabilities. And here she was, a phantom from another life, washing the dishes of the people who could buy and sell her 100 times over. In her past life, she would have felt nothing but shame. She would have ducked her head, trying to become invisible, praying that no one she knew would see her. But that Elena was dead. This Elena was forged from rage and a burning, unyielding desire for survival. It had been 6 months since the accident. 6 months since she had collided, quite literally, with Julian Sterling. The enigmatic CEO had paid for her hospital stay, ensured she had the best doctor for her fractured ARM, and had even offered her a no-strings-attached financial settlement, which she had politely but firmly declined. She had taken only what she needed: a small loan to secure a better APA treatment, a reliable CAR seat for Leo, and enough to enroll in a night class for advanced coding. She was building her future, brick by painstaking brick. But the bills piled up, and a temporary catering job was the only thing that fit around her schedule and Leo's daycare. So here she was, scrubbing the remnants of a feast she would never taste. The kitchen was a cacophony of clanging pots, shouted orders, and the frantic energy of a Melita operation. The head chef, a portly man named Marco with a face permanently flushed from heat and anger, stormed past her. "Elena, those are the Villeroy and Bach plates. Don't you chip them. Use less force. God, you're as clumsy as a bull in a china shop." She bit her tongue, the metallic taste of blood filling her mouth. In her old life, she would have apologized profusely, her eyes welling with tears. Now she simply nodded, her jaw set. "Yes, chef." But she didn't lessen her grip. She scrubbed with a cold, deliberate efficiency, her movements precise and controlled. She was watching, always watching. Through the small, circular window of the kitchen door, she could see the main ballroom. The glittering crowd, the orchestra playing a waltz, the fully curated smiles. And then she saw him, Julian Sterling. He was a monolith in the center of the room, a dark, magnetic force that seemed to RP the space around him. He was dressed in an impeccably tailored black tuxedo, his dark hair swept back from his chiseled face. He was holding court, a cluster of sycophantic business associates and socialites clinging to his every word, hoping for a scrap of his attention. But his eyes, those piercing slate-gray eyes, were not on them. They were scanning the edges of the room, a faint, almost imperceptible crease of irritation between his brows. He looked bored. He looked restless. Suddenly, as if drawn by an invisible thread, his gaze snapped to the small kitchen window. Elena froze, her heart hammering against her ribs. Their eyes met. For a fleeting second, the noise of the kitchen, the shouts, the clatter, all faded away. His expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. A flicker of recognition. A spark of something to recur, more intense. And then, a woman in a ridiculously extravagant ruby-red gown stepped in front of him, blocking her view, and the moment was gone. Elena's hands trembled as she resumed scrubbing. Why was he here? She knew he was the host, the benefactor. She knew he was the most powerful man in the room. But she had been so careful to avoid this gala. It was only a last-minute scheduling conflict that had landed her here. It was a cosmic joke, a cruel taunt from the universe. What was she doing? She was a dishwasher, and he was the king. And yet, for that one brief moment, she could have sworn she saw more than just recognition in his eyes. It was a question, a plea. "Hey, Dreamer, you've got a delivery at the entrance. Get your head out of the clouds. Marco Bierked, snapping his fingers in her face. Elena wiped her hands on her apron, her heart still racing. She slipped out of the main kitchen through the back corridor, the sounds of the gala fading behind her. The service entrance was a stark contrast to the opulence of the main event. A plain, gray concrete hallway, lit by HRSH fluorescent lights, leading to a metal door. A man in a plain suit was waiting, holding a small, white box tied with a simple silver ribbon. Delivery for the head of catering, he said, handing her the box. Personal. From Mr. Sterling. Elena's blood ran cold. She took the box, her fingers brushing against the smooth, expensive paper. Thank you, she managed to whisper. She retreated into a small, dingy supply closet, the only place she could find a sliver of privacy. With trembling hands, she untied the ribbon and lifted the lid. Inside, nestled on a bed of black velvet, was a single, exquisite diamond necklace. It was a simple teardrop design, but the stone was impossibly clear, a perfect, flawless piece of ice that glittered with its own inner fire. Tucked beneath it was a small, cream-colored CA road. On it, in a bold, elegant script, was a single line, asterisk, for the woman who shouldn't be wearing that uniform. Asterisk. A wave of dizzying confusion washed over her. This wasn't an apology or a thank you. This was a message. A bold, unequivocal statement of ownership. It was a violation of every boundary she had so refully erected. And it was a declaration of that she didn't want his charity. She didn't want his pity. She was building her life on her own terms. But this was different. This was an invitation. And despite every rational voice in her head screaming at her to refuse, to return it, a tiny, rebellious part of her, the part that had been reved for true kindness for so long, felt a dangerous flicker of warmth. The door to the supply closet creaked open. Elena spun around, the necklace clutched in her hand. A woman stood there, a tall, elegant brunette in a silver gown, her face a mask of cold, aristocratic disdain. It was Daniel's sister, Vanessa, her ex-sister-in-law, the woman who had led the RG in bullying her and calling Leo a freak. Vanessa's voice was a high, mocking drawl. Well, look at what the cat dragged in. Washing dishes at my brother's charity gala, how delightfully pathetic. The old Elena would have shrunk into herself. She would have stammered an excuse, begged Vanessa not to say anything. But this Elena was tired of being afraid of these vicious, hollow people. She calmly placed the necklace box back in its velvet bed and closed the lid, tucking it into the pocket of her apron. Vanessa, she said, her voice as cool and smooth as the marble in the ballroom. How lovely to see you. I trust your hair is holding up well against the humidity. It looks shiny. Vanessa's eyes narrowed, a flash of pure venom in them. You impudent little wretch, she hissed, stepping closer. I knew it was you. I saw you through the window. I can't believe you have the audacity to show your face here. Does my brother know? Does he know his pathetic little ex-wife is scraping for crumbs in his kitchen? He's not my anything, Elena said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. He was a mistake. A temporary, regrettable error in judgment that cost me a few years. But I've corrected it. So, if you'll excuse me, I have real work to do. She pushed past Vanessa, her shoulder brushing against the woman's. Vanessa let out a gasp of outrage. You'll pay for this, you ungrateful little gutter snipe. I'll have you fired. I'll have you blacklisted from every catering company in the city. Mark my words. Elena didn't turn back. She walked back Tawa RDS the kitchen, her heart pounding a steady, defiant rhythm. Vanessa's words were empty threats. She had bigger things to worry about, like the diamond necklace burning a hole in her pocket, like the mysterious, powerful man who had sent it. The rest of the gala passed in a blur. Elena kept her head down, working with a mechanical efficiency. She avoided the main ballroom. She refused to look through the window, but she could feel him. His presence was a gravitational force, a constant pressure at the back of her mind. At the end of the night, as the last of the guests filtered out and the catering staff began the final cleanup, Elena was alone in the now quiet kitchen. She was wrapping the last of the silverware wreath, the ache in her back a dull, persistent throb. A soft footfall made her look up. Julian Sterling was standing in the doorway. He was without his jacket. His white shirt sleeves rolled up to his elbows, revealing strong, tanned forearms. His tie was loosened. The top button of his collar are undone. He looked less like a king and more like a man who had just finished a very long, very difficult shift. Their eyes met. He didn't say a word. He simply walked over to her and took the wet cloth from her hands. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice a low, gravelly murmur. "You shouldn't have to do this. It's just a job," she said, her voice raspy. "I'm not ashamed of honest work." "Elena," he said, and the way he said her name, with a tenderness that was utterly at odds with his imposing presence, made her breath catch. "I saw you. I see you. Not just tonight. I see you everywhere. The way you hold your son, the fire in your eyes, and the way you carry the weight of a past you don't deserve." He reached out and gently touched the corner of her chin, tilting her face up to meet his gaze. "I sent you that necklace because I wanted you to know that you are not invisible. You are not forgotten. And you are not alone." "Why," she whispered, the single word a plea for an answer she was terrified to hear. "Why do you say we don't know each other?" He looked at her then, a profound, ancient sadness in his eyes. "You'd be surprised," he murmured. "You'd be very surprised, Elena, about what I know, and about who you really are." Before she could process his words, he leaned in and pressed a soft, almost imperceptible kiss to her forehead. It was a gesture so innocent, so reverent, that it felt more intimate than any passionate embrace. It was a vow. "Go home, Elena," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Rest. You're safe. I promise you. No one will ever make you wash a single dish again." He pulled away, his eyes gleaming with a fierce, protective light. He turned and walked away, to sap a ring into the shadowy corridor. Elena was left standing in the silent kitchen, her hand pressed to her forehead where his lips had been, her mind reeling as she walked out of the gala and into the cool night air, the necklace still heavy in her pocket. A single, terrifying thought clawed its way to the surface. He had said about who you really are, not who you were. Who she really was. What did that mean? What did he know, and how deep did this mystery go? She had thought her second chance was about escaping her past. But standing in the glow of the empty, silent ballroom, with the phantom of a kiss on her forehead and a diamond in her pocket, she was beginning to suspect that her past was about to catch up with her in a way she could never have imagined. Her husband, Daniel, was a small, petty man, a fraud. But what if, in her desperate bid to escape him, she had just stumbled into a world are more dangerous and are more complex than she ever knew? The question of Leo's paternity, a mystery she had buried deep, surfaced with chilling CLA righty. Could Julian Sterling hold the answer, and if he did, what would it cost her to find out? The necklace sat on her nightstand like a tiny, glittering accusation. Elena had been staring at it for 3 hours, her eyes burning with exhaustion, her mind a whirlwind of fractured thoughts. Leo was asleep in his crib, his tiny chest rising and falling in a peaceful rhythm that she desperately wished she could mirror. But sleep was a luxury she could not afford. Not when every time she closed her eyes, she saw Julian Sterling's face. He heard his voice, felt the ghost of his lips on her forehead. She reached out and picked up the diamond, holding it up to the dim light of the bedside lamp. It was flawless, not a single imperfection. She knew enough about jewelry to understand that this was not a trinket one gave lightly. This was a statement, a declaration. But of what ownership, gratitude, something are more complicated. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, making her jump. The screen lit up with a name she hadn't seen in months. Daniel. Her finger hovered over the decline button, but something made her pause. Curiosity, perhaps, or the nagging suspicion that the universe was not done throwing obstacles in her path. She swiped to answer, her voice cold and flat. What do you want, Elena? Daniel's voice was smooth, almost pleasant. It was the voice he used when he wanted something. The voice that had once made her believe he loved her. I heard you were at the gala last night. My sister mentioned she ran into you. Of course she did. Vanessa had wasted no time running to her brother with the juicy gossip. Elena could picture the scene. The two of them huddled together, their venomous whispers dripping with contempt. Your sister and I had a lovely chat, Elena said dryly. She was as charming as ever. Daniel ignored the barb. Listen, I've been thinking. Maybe we should talk. About Leo. About us. Elena laughed. A short, bitter sound that seemed to surprise even her. There is no us, Daniel. There never was. There was you, and there was me, and there was me doing all the heavy lifting while you played pretend businessman with your family's money. So whatever you want to talk about, say it now. I don't have time for games. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When Daniel spoke again, his voice had lost its pleasant veneer. You've changed. Yes, she agreed. I have. And you're not going to like what I've become. I want to see Leo, he said abruptly. He's my son. I have rights. The words hit her like a physical blow. In her past life, Daniel had acknowledged Leo's existence. He had called him a burden, a mistake, a drain on their resources. Now, suddenly, he was invoking his paternal rights. No, this wasn't about Leo. This was about control. This was about Daniel's fragile ego, wounded by her defiance, desperate to reassert dominance. You can see Leo when I say you can see Leo, Elena said, her voice dangerously quiet. And right now, I say you stay the hell away from him. You don't get to play the doting father after years of neglect. You don't get to waltz back into his life because your sister told you I was at a fancy party. You don't get anything from me, Daniel. Not anymore. You'll regret this, he reled, the mask finally slipping completely. You think you're so tough now you think you can just walk away. I'll take you to court. I'll fight for custody. I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of mother you are. A dishwasher. A nobody. You think a judge is going to side with you over me? Elena's grip on the phone tightened until her knuckles turned white. But she didn't rise to the bait. She had Leah reneged, in the painful crucible of her past life, that Daniel's threats were as hollow as his promises. He was a bully, and bullies only thrived when their victims cowered. Go ahead, she said calmly. Call your lawyers. Send your letters. I'll be waiting. But let me give you a piece of advice, Daniel. You have no idea who you're dealing with anymore. And if you come after my son, I will destroy you. Not because I want to, but because I have to. Do you understand me? The silence on the other end was deafening. Then, with a strangled sound of frustration, Daniel hung up. Elena let out a shaky breath and set the phone down. Her hands were trembling. She hated that he could still do this to her, even after everything. But she also felt a strange sense of calm. She had stood her ground. She had refused to be intimidated. That was a victory, no matter how small. A soft COO from the crib drew her attention. Leo was awake, his big brown eyes blinking sleepily at her. He smiled, that gummy, toothless grin that never failed to melt her heart. She crossed the room and pet him into her arms, pressing a kiss to the top of his head. Did you hear that, little one? She murmured. Your father is going to try to cause trouble. But Mama's not red. Mama's ready. Leo gurgled happily, completely unaware of the storm brewing on the horizon. Elena held him close, drawing strength from his his innocence. He was her reason, her purpose, and she would burn the world to ashes before she let anyone take him from her. The next morning, Elena arrived at the tech startup where she had been working part-time. It was a small, cramped office in a rundown building, but it was hers. Well, not hers yet, but it would be. She had been hired as a junior developer, working on the back end of a revolutionary new platform that was set to disrupt the entire industry. She knew because she had seen it happen in her past life. She had watched from the sidelines as the company skyrocketed to success, making millionaires out of its ARLY employees. This time, she was determined to be one of them. Her boss, a wiry man named Marcus, waved her over as soon as she walked in. "Elena, good you're here. We've got a situation. The lead developer quit last night. Something about a better offer. I need you to step up. We have a major presentation in 3 days, and I can't afford to lose momentum." Elena blinked, processing the sudden turn of events. In her past life, the lead developer had been a man named Chun, who had been poached by a competitor. The company had scrambled to replace him, but the project had been delayed, costing them valuable time, and Marquette Shahri Elena knew this because she had read about it in a business magazine years later. But now she was in a position to change the outcome. "I can do it," she said, her voice steady. "I've been studying the codebase for weeks. I know the architecture inside and out. Give me 2 days, and I'll have everything ready for the presentation." Marcus looked at her with a mixture of surprise and skepticism. "You're sure this is a lot of responsibility for someone so new?" "I'm sure," Elena said firmly. "I wouldn't have offered if I wasn't confident." He studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "All right, you're on. Don't make me regret this." Elena spent the next 12 hours buried in code. She worked through lunch, through the afternoon, through the evening. Her fingers flew across the keyboard ARD, her mind sharp and focused. She was in her element. This was the world she was meant to be in. Not scrubbing dishes at a gala, not cowering under Daniel's thumb. This was her escape, her redemption. By the time she looked up, the office was empty, and the city lights were glittering outside the window. She stretched her aching back and checked her phone. There was a message from an unknown number. "I heard about the presentation. Good luck. I know you don't need it. JS. Elena Sta read at the screen, her heart racing. Julian Sterling. How had he known about the presentation? How had he gotten her number? The questions swirled in her mind. But one thing was clear, he was watching her closely, and she wasn't sure how she felt about that. She typed a quick reply. "Thank you. But how did you know? The response came almost immediately. "I know everything about you, Elena, and I'm not sorry. She read the message 3 times, her pulse hammering. There it was again. That unsettling, intoxicating mixture of attention and mystery. Part of her wanted to run in the opposite direction. But another, larger part of her, the part that had been sta revered for kindness and validation, wanted to dive in headfirst. She didn't reply. Instead, she packed up her things and headed home, her mind churning with questions she didn't have answers to. When she arrived at her apartment, she found a small box waiting outside her door. It was wrapped in the same silver ribbon as the necklace box. Her hands trembling, she picked it up and ried it inside. Leo was with the babysitter, so she had a moment of privacy. She opened the box. Inside was a photograph. It was old, faded at the edges, showing a young woman with honey-brown hair and a bright, hopeful smile. She was holding a baby in her arms, her face radiant with joy. The baby was Leo, and the woman was her. But Elena didn't remember this photograph. She had never seen it before in her life. Tucked beneath the photograph was another note, written in the same elegant script. She was the bravest woman I ever knew, and she deserved so much more than she got. I'm gonna make sure you get it, Elena, all of it, because you are her, and she is you, and you are my second chance. Elena dropped the photograph as if it had burned her. Her mind was reeling. Who was the woman in the photo? Why did Julian have a picture of her that she had never seen, and what did he mean by my second chance? She looked down at the photo again, studying it more closely. There was something familiar about the background, a faded banner in the corner. She squinted, trying to make out the words. It read, Sterling Foundation Orphanage, Annual Picnic. Her blood ran cold. Sterling. Julian Sterling. Her mind raced back to a conversation she had long buried, a fragment of a memory from her childhood. She had grown up in an orphanage. She had been abandoned as an infant, left on the steps of a church with no name, no family, no history. She had been adopted at the age of 3 by a kind but poor couple who had passed away when she was 16. After that, it had been a series of foster homes, each one worse than the last. She had survived, but just ba rely. She had no memories of her biological parents. No idea who she really was. But Julian did. Somehow, impossibly, he knew. And the photograph was proof. It was a piece of a puzzle she hadn't even known she was trying to solve that she sank onto the couch, her legs giving out beneath her. Leo was her whole world, her reason for fighting. But now, suddenly, there was another mystery. Another thread pulling her Tawa RD, a past she had never known and a future she couldn't predict. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Julian. Asterisk. I know your SCA read. I know you have questions. But I need you to trust me. I promise you, Elena, everything I do is for you. For Leo. For the family we could have been. Asterisk. Family. The word echoed in her mind. A foreign concept that felt both terrifying and exhilarating. She thought of Daniel, of his threats, of his cruelty. She thought of Vanessa, of her mocking laughter. And she thought of Julian, of the way he looked at her. As if she were the most precious thing in the world. Elena looked down at the photograph, at the smiling young woman who was her, but not her. And then she looked at Leo, who was sleeping peacefully in his crib, oblivious to the storm raging around him. She made a decision. She would find out the truth. Whatever it cost her. She would uncover the secrets of her past. And she would use them to build a future for her son. A future where no one could threaten them. A future where she was finally in control. She typed a single word in reply to Julian. When the answer came almost instantly. Asterisk, tomorrow. I'll send a CAR. Asterisk. Elena put down the phone and picked up the photograph, tracing the edges of her own youthful face. For the first time in both her lives, she felt like she was standing on the edge of something immense. Something that would change everything. But as she drifted into a restless sleep, a thought nagged at the back of her mind. A shadow in the corner of her consciousness. If Julian had known her from the orphanage, if he had known her birth mother, then he had known about her long before she ever met Daniel. And if he had known about her, why had he let her suffer? Why had he let her why a monster? Why had he let her die in that cold hospital room? Alone and unloved. The questions were a storm, relentless and unforgiving. And deep in her Elena knew that the answers, when they came, would be more devastating than she could possibly imagine. The CAR that arrived the next morning was not the sleek black Rolls-Royce she had expected. It was a modest, unassuming sedan, the kind of vehicle that blended seamlessly into the city's midday traffic. The driver was a quiet, middle-aged man with kind eyes and a professional demeanor. He didn't ask questions. He simply opened the door for her and waited. Elena hesitated on the curb. Leo strapped securely into his stroller beside her. She had arranged for the babysitter to take him for the afternoon, but leaving him felt like wring out a piece of her own heart. She knelt down beside the stroller, pressing her forehead against his tiny room one. Mama will be back soon, she whispered. I promise. Leo gurgled, reaching up to grab a fistful of her hair. She laughed softly, the sound catching in her throat. Then she stood, SQA read her shoulders, and climbed into the CAR. The drive took them out of the city, past the crowded suburbs, and into a sprawling countryside of rolling hills and ancient oak trees. The houses grew larger, more secluded, their driveways hidden behind iron gates and manicured hedges. Elena watched the scenery blur past, her heart pounding with a mixture of dread and anticipation. Finally, the CAR turned onto a private road, winding through a dense forest before emerging into a clear ring. And there it was, Sterling Manor. It was not a house. It was an estate, a sprawling, centuries-old mansion of gray stone and ivy, its windows catching the afternoon sun like 1,000 glittering eyes. The grounds were immaculate, sweeping lawns dotted with statues and fountains, a distant glimpse of what looked like a private lake. That Elena had seen wealth before. She had scrubbed the plates of the wealthy, served their champagne, witnessed their casual extravagance. But this was different. This was old money, the kind of wealth that didn't need to show off because it had nothing to prove. The CAR pulled up to the front entrance, and the driver opened her door. "Mr. Sterling is waiting for you in the library, ma'am. I'll show you the way." She followed him through a grand foyer, her footsteps echoing on the marble floor. The walls were lined with portraits, generations of Sterlings staring down at her with cold, haughty eyes. But as she passed one painting, she stopped. It was a woman, young, beautiful, with honey-brown hair and a radiant smile. The same woman from the photograph. Her mother. Elena's breath caught. She stood frozen, her eyes locked on the painting. The resemblance was unmistakable. The same curve of the jaw, the same shape of the eyes. The woman in the portrait could have been her twin. Her name was Isabella. Elena spun around. Julian was standing in the doorway of the library, his tall frame silhouetted against the light. He was dressed casually, in a simple white shirt and arcade trousers, but he still radiated the same quiet, commanding presence that seemed to fill every room he entered. "Who was she?" Elena asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Julian stepped closer, his eyes fixed on the painting. "She was my mother's younger sister, my aunt. And she was your birth mother." The words hit Elena like a physical blow. She staggered backward, her hand flying to her mouth. Her mother. She had a mother. A real mother with a name and a face and a history. And she had been a Sterling. But that means... Elena's mind raced, trying to piece together the fragments. "That means you and I are cousins," Julian said gently. "First cousins, to be precise. Your mother was my aunt. But there's more to the story. A lot more." Elena shook her head, her thoughts spinning. "Why didn't you tell me? Why did you let me live my entire life not knowing I grew up in an orphanage, Julian? I was alone. I had no one. And you knew who I was. And you just..." Watched. Julian's expression keened with what looked like genuine pain. "It's not that simple, Elena. Your mother made me promise. She made me swear on her deathbed that I would stay away from you, that I would never reveal the truth." "Her deathbed," Elena repeated, her voice cracking. "She died." "Yes," Julian said, his voice low. "She died when you were only a few months old. Complications from childbirth. She was sick, Elena. Very sick. She knew she wasn't going to survive, so she made arrangements. She gave you to a trusted friend, a woman who worked at the church, and asked her to find a family for you. A normal family, FAR away from the Sterlings. FAR away from the danger." "Danger?" Elena's blood ran cold. "What kind of danger?" Julian ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration. "Your mother's family was not typical, Elena. The Sterlings were wealthy, yes, but they were also deeply involved in certain organizations. Organizations that your mother wanted no part of. When she refused to cooperate with certain business interests, she became a target. She was afraid that the same thing would happen to you." Elena read at him, her mind reeling. She had always thought she was just a nobody, a disc-ride child with no past and no future. But the truth was so much more complicated. She was a Sterling. She was connected to a world of power and danger, of secrets and shadows. "And my father?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Julian's jaw tightened. "Your father was a good man, kind man, but he was not a Sterling. He was a simple farmer your mother met and fell in love with. He died in an accident before you were born. Your mother never recovered from the loss." Elena sank into a NARBY chair, her legs unable to support her any longer. The weight of it all was crushing. She had imagined her mother 1,000 times over the years, a vague, faceless figure who had abandoned her. She had imagined her as cold, uncaring, someone who didn't want her. But the truth was so much more heartbreaking. Her mother had loved her. She had sacrificed everything to protect her. "She hid me," Elena whispered, more to herself than to Julian. "She gave me away to keep me safe." "Yes," Julian said, sitting down across from her. "And I honored her wish. For 24 years, I stayed away. I kept my distance. But when I saw you at that accident, when I saw your face, I knew I couldn't stay silent any longer. You look just like her, Elena. You're her spitting image. And I know she would have wanted me to tell you the truth. Elena looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. Why now? Why not sooner? Julian leaned forward, his eyes blazing with intensity. Because you were married to Daniel. A man who is not what he seems. A man whose family has ties to the same organizations my mother's family tried to protect you from. When I saw you with him, I knew I had to wait. I had to be careful. If I had revealed the truth, I could have put you in even more danger. Elena's heart stopped. Daniel was connected to this world. The petty, small-minded man who had belittled her and neglected her was part of something far to recur. What kind of organizations? She asked, her voice trembling. Julian's expression hardened. You don't need to know the details. Not yet. What you need to know is this. Daniel is not just your ex-husband. He's a liability, a loose end. And there are people who will stop at nothing to tie up loose ends. Including you. Including Leo. The mention of her son sent a jolt of terror through her. Leo is just a baby. He has nothing to do with any of this. Leo is your son, Julian said firmly, which means he is connected to you, and by extension to the Sterlings, to your mother's legacy, to everything we are trying to protect. Elena stood up abruptly, her fists clenched at her sides. I won't let anyone hurt him. I will kill anyone who tries. Julian rose as well, his expression softening. I know. That's why I'm telling you this now. Because I need you to be prepared. I can protect you. I have the resources, the connections. But I can't do it without your cooperation. Without your trust. Elena read at him, her mind a storm of conflicting emotions. She had spent so long fighting alone, trusting no one, relying only on herself. The idea of surrendering even a fraction of that control was terrifying. But the look in Julian's eyes, the sincerity, the pain was undeniable. He had loved her mother. And somehow, impossibly, it seemed like he was beginning to love her too. I'll try, she said finally, her voice RC. I'll try to trust you. But if you keep anything else from me, if you lie to me, I will walk away. And I won't look back. Julian nodded, a flicker of relief crossing his features. I would expect nothing less. You are your mother's daughter, through and through. He reached out and took her hand, his grip warm and steady. Come, there's something else I need to show you. He led her through the manor, past sprawling rooms filled with priceless antiques and opulent furnishings, until they reached a small, private study at the back of the house. The room was modest by sterling standards, lined with bookshelves and dominated by a large oak desk. On the desk was a leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed with age. This was your mother's, Julian said, handing it to her. She wrote it in the months before she died. It's her story, Elena, her truth. I think you're ready to read it. Elena took the journal with trembling hands, her fingers brushing against the worn leather. She opened the cover, and a single line caught her eye, written in a flowing, elegant script. I asterisk to my dearest daughter, the greatest love and the greatest loss of my life. I hope you will forgive me for the choice I made. And I hope one day you will understand. Asterisk. The TRS she had been holding back spilled over, dripping onto the page. This was not just a story. This was a window into a life she had never known. A connection to a mother she had never met. And as she clutched the journal to her chest, a fierce determination sparked inside her. She would read every word. She would uncover every secret. And she would use everything she learned to protect Leo, to build a future for them both. But as she looked up at Julian, a new question formed in her mind. Why had he waited so long to give her this? Why had he not given it to her years ago, when she was alone and desperate and searching for answers? And then, a recur thought. If her mother had been so desperate to protect her, why was Julian now pulling her into the very world she had been hidden from? Was he truly trying to help her? Or was there something else at play, something he wasn't telling her? She pushed the thought aside, focusing on the journal in her hands. Whatever his motives, she would find out. She was done being a pawn in other people's games. This time, she was going to write her own story. Julian watched her with a complex, unreadable expression. For a moment, she could have sworn she saw regret in his eyes, but it vanished as quickly as it had appared, replaced by that calm, unwavering confidence that seemed to be his trait arche. "Read it," he said softly, "and when you're ready, we'll talk." Elena nodded, clutching the journal like a lifeline. She didn't know what the future held. She didn't know if she could trust Julian or anyone else. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She would never be a victim again. Not of Daniel, not of her past, and not of the secrets that were threatening to consume her. As she left Sterling Manor, the journal tucked safely in her bag, she felt a strange sense of peace. She was standing on the edge of a precipice, teetering between the life she had known and the life that awaited her. But for the first time, she wasn't afraid. She was ready that the leather-bound journal burned a hole in Elena's bag for 3 days. She read it everywhere, unable to bring herself to open it, yet unwilling to let it out of her sight. It sat on her desk while she coded, on her nightstand while she slept, on the kitchen counter while she fed Leo his mashed peas. It was a physical weight, a tangible reminder of the past that had been stolen from her. On the third night, after Leo was asleep and the appartement was quiet, she finally sat down on the couch, the journal in her lap. Her hands were steady as she opened the cover, but her heart was racing that the first few pages were mundane. A record of daily life, written in her mother's elegant script. The weather, the garden, a new dress she had purchased. But as Elena read deeper, the tone shifted. "I met him today. His name is James. He was fixing a fence on the edge of our property, and he looked up at me with the most beautiful eyes I have ever seen. He was covered in mud and sweat, and yet he was the most handsome man I had ever laid eyes on." My heart skipped a beat. "I think I'm in trouble." Elena smiled through her tears. Her father, James F.A. Romer, a simple, kind man who had captured her mother's heart. "I told him I was a sterling. I thought it would re him away. But he just laughed and said, 'I don't see a re if you're the Queen of England. I see a re if you're happy. I think I'm in love.'" The pages grew thicker, the handwriting more hurried. The joy of a new romance, the thrill of a secret love. But then, the tone shifted again. Darkness crept into the margins. Julian found out. He was furious. He said James was beneath me, that I was throwing away my birthright for a commoner. I told him I didn't see a re about birthright. I see a red about love. He didn't understand. He never does. Elena frowned. The Julian in these pages was different from the man she knew. Colder, rider, more possessive. "I'm pregnant. James is overjoyed. I'm terrified. My family will never accept this child. They will never accept James. I have to protect them. I have to find a way out." The entries became fragmented, desperate. Pages torn out, lines crossed out, as if her mother had been writing through a haze of fear and uncertainty. "They're watching me. My family's associates. They know about James. They know about the baby. They said if I don't cooperate, they'll hurt him. I can't let that happen. I have to leave. I have to disappear." Elena's breath caught. Her mother hadn't just given her away. She had been running from the very people Julian claimed to be protecting her from. "I made Julian promise. Promise he would stay away. Promise he would never let them find her. He swore on his life. He said he would protect her as if she were his own child. I don't trust him, but I have no choice. She is my only hope." The final entry was written in shaky, legible handwriting. "My dearest daughter, I don't know who you will become. I don't know if you will ever read these words. But I want you to know that I loved you. From the moment I felt you move inside me, to the moment I held you in my arms. You were the light of my life, and I had to let you go to keep you safe. Please forgive me. Please don't hate me. I will love you until the end of time. Your mother, Isabella. Asterisk. Elena closed the journal, her body racked with silent sobs. She had a mother who had loved her so fiercely that she had given up everything to protect her. And now that mother was gone, dead, because of a world she had tried so desperately to escape. But the journal also revealed something else, something that chilled her to the bone. Julian had known. He had known all of it. The danger, the threats, her mother's fear, and he had kept it from her. He had let her suffer through years of abuse, years of loneliness, all because of a promise made to a dying woman. Elena's grief hardened into rage. She was tired of being protected, tired of being lied to, tired of being treated like a child who couldn't handle the truth. She grabbed her phone and dialed Julian's number. He answered on the first ring. Elena, I was hoping you'd call. Don't, she said, her voice sharp. Don't pretend like you're happy to hear from me. I read the journal. I know everything. There was a long pause. When Julian spoke again, his voice was heavy. Then you know I made a promise. A promise I kept, even when it tore me apart. A promise to lie to me, Elena spat. A promise to let me ry a monster. To let me suffer. To let my son grow up without knowing his grandmother's name. I did what I thought was best, Julian said, his voice strained. I was trying to protect you, just like your mother wanted. My mother wanted me to be safe, Elena said, her voice trembling with fury. She didn't want me to be alone. She didn't want me to be afraid. And she certainly didn't want me to ry a man like Daniel. Why didn't you in me? Why didn't you stop it? Because I couldn't, Julian said, and for the first time his voice cracked. I was young, Elena. Stupid. I thought I could control everything. I thought if I kept you at arm's length you would be safer. I didn't realize until it was too late how much I had failed you. And when I saw you in that hospital, when I saw the bruises on your RMS and the fear in your eyes, I wanted to tell the world apart. But I couldn't, because I had made a promise. And I was too proud to break it. Elena was silent, her anger warring with a growing sense of pity. He had been young. He had made mistakes. But so had she. And she had paid for them with her life. I don't forgive you, she said finally. Not yet. But I'm willing to try. For Leo. For my mother. For the family we could have been. Julian let out a shaky breath. Thank you. That's more than I deserve. But I need to know, Elena continued, her voice hardening. The people who threatened my mother. The people who made her run. Are they the same ones connected to Daniel? Yes, Julian said quietly. Daniel's family has been tied to the organization for generations. They're not at the top, but they're deeply embedded. They were the ones who helped orchestrate the threats against your mother. They wanted her silenced because she knew too much. Knew too much about what. There was a long pause. When Julian spoke again, his voice was a whisper. About your father's death. It wasn't an accident, Elena. It was a warning. They killed him to send a message. And your mother was next. Elena felt the world tilt. Her father had been murdered. Her mother had been hunted. And now, she was standing in the middle of the same storm, with Leo in her RMS and no way out. I need to see you, she said, her voice shaking. Tomorrow. We need to talk. Face to face. I'll send a CAR, Julian said. But Elena BCA Riefel. Once you step into this world, there's no going back. I know, she said, her voice steady. I'm ready. The next morning, Elena woke to a text from Americas. The presentation had been a success. The investors were thrilled. They wanted to move forward with the project. And they wanted her to lead the development team. She should have been elated. This was the breakthrough she had been working towards. The moment that would secure her future and Leo's. But instead, she felt a chill run down her spine. The timing was too perfect. Too convenient. She called Julian. The presentation was a success, she said. The investors are moving forward road. And they want me to lead the project. That's wonderful news, Julian said. but his voice was C.A. Riefel. Why do you sound worried? Because it's too easy, Elena said. Everything has been too easy since I met you. The job, the presentation, the connection to your family. It feels like someone is pulling strings. And I don't know who. Julian was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was grim. You're right to be suspicious, Elena. There's something I haven't told you. Something I've been trying to protect you from. Elena's heart sank. What is it? The investors who backed your company, Julian said slowly. They're connected to the same organization that killed your father. And I think they know who you are. I think they've been waiting for you to step out of the shadows. Elena's blood ran cold. She looked down at her phone, her mind racing. She had walked straight into a trap. A C.A. Riefel orchestrated plan designed to draw her out, to make her vulnerable. They know about me, she said, her voice betraying a whisper. They know about Leo. Yes, Julian said. And that's why we can't wait anymore. I have to get you out of the city, out of the country. It's the only way to keep you safe. Elena looked around her small apartment, at the crib where Leo was sleeping, at the journal sitting on the coffee table. Her mother had run. She had hidden. And in the end, it hadn't been enough. The same people had found her. They had taken everything from her. I'm not running, Elena said, her voice suddenly clear and strong. I'm done running. They want to come after me. Let them. I'll be waiting. And I'll make sure they regret ever knowing my name. Elena, you don't understand, Julian said, his voice desperate. These people are not like Daniel. They won't play games. They will kill you. They will kill Leo. And they will do it without hesitation. Then I'll be ready, Elena said. I have you. I have my mother's journal. And I have a son to protect. I'm not afraid anymore. She hung up, her hands shaking but her resolve unbreakable. She looked at Leo, who had woken up and was sound softly in his crib. She crossed the room and picked him up, holding him close. I'm not going to let them take you, Leo, she whispered. I'm not going to let them take anything from us ever again. I promise. The phone buzzed again. Another message from Julian. I'm coming to get you. Tonight. Be ready. Elena looked out the window at the city below. The bustling streets full of people who had no idea about the war that was brewing. She was no longer a victim. She was no longer a pawn. She was a soldier, a mother, a warrior. And she was about to face the darkness head-on. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the room, Elena made her preparations. She packed a bag for Leo, filled with his favorite toys and enough formula for a week. She tucked the journal into the bag, along with the diamond necklace Julian had given her, a reminder of who she was, a reminder of what she was fighting for. And as she waited for Julian to arrive, she sat in the quiet of her apartment, holding Leo in her RMS, and let herself feel the fear, not to be consumed by it, but to acknowledge it, to use it, to turn it into strength. The doorbell rang. Elena took a deep breath, stood up, and walked toward the door. Whatever was waiting on the other side, she was ready. She had to be, because this time, she was not just fighting for herself. She was fighting for Leo, for her mother's memory, for the future that had been stolen from them all. And she would not rest until she had won. The door swung open, and Elena's breath caught in her throat. It was not Julian standing on her doorstep. It was a woman, tall, elegant, with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a severe bun and eyes the color of winter frost. She was dressed in a tailored black suit, her posture regal, her expression unreadable. Behind her, two hulking men in RK sunglasses stood at attention, their hands clasped in front of them. Elena Sterling, the woman said, her voice cool and measured. Or should I say, Elena Croft, the name your mother gave you before she read. Elena's blood turned to ice. She stepped back instinctively, one arm tightening around Leo, the other reaching for the door to slam it shut. But one of the men was faster, his hand shooting out to block the door. Don't be foolish, the woman said, a faint smile playing on her lips. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to offer you a choice. A choice. Elena's voice was sharp. Her fear are crystallizing into fury. You threaten me at my own door and you call it a choice. The woman's smile widened. I'm your grandmother, Elena, Eleanor Sterling, and I've been waiting a very long time to meet you. Elena Sta read at her, the words not computing. Grandmother, the matriarch of the Sterling family. The woman who had orchestrated her mother's persecution, who had driven her to run, to hide, to die alone. You're the one who killed my father, Elena said, her voice trembling with rage. You're the one who hunted my mother, and now you come to my door, calling yourself my grandmother. Eleanor's smile faded, replaced by something that might have been regret. Your father's death was a tragedy, a mistake. I never intended for him to be harmed. I only wanted to protect the family name. Your mother's choices threatened everything we had built. I did what I thought was necessary. You did what was convenient, Elena spat. You threw away your own daughter because she fell in love with the wrong man. And now you want to pretend like we're family. Eleanor stepped closer, her eyes boring into Elena's. I am not pretending. You are a Sterling, Elena, whether you like it or not. You have the blood of generations running through your veins. And you have a son who rise the same legacy. I came here to offer you a place in this family, a position of power. All you have to do is accept it. Elena laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. You think I want power, you think I want anything from you. I've spent my entire life being controlled by people who thought they knew what was best for me. My husband, his family, your pathetic organization. I'm done being a pawn. I'm done being told who I am and what I'm worth. Elena, Eleanor began, but Elena cut her off. Get out, she said, her voice low and deadly. Get out of my home and don't come back. If I ever see your face again, I'll make sure the whole world knows what the Sterlings really are. A family of cowards and killers who destroy anyone who refuses to bow to them. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. For a moment, Elena thought she saw a flicker of respect in that cold, calculating gaze. Then the older woman nodded slowly, almost imperceptibly. Very well, she said, turning to leave. But this is not over, Elena. The world you are a part of now will not let you go so easily. And one day you will come to me. One day, you will realize that the only way to survive is to embrace who you are. Elena watched her go, her heart pounding. The two men followed Eleanor down the stairs, their footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. And then they were gone. Elena closed the door, her legs giving out beneath her. She sank to the floor, Leo still clutched against her chest, trembling from head to toe. She had done it. She had faced the woman who had destroyed her mother's life and refused to bend. But the victory felt hollow, because Eleanor was right. This was not over. It would never be over. Not until the organization was destroyed once and for all. Her phone buzzed. Julian. She answered with a shaking hand. Elena, I'm downstairs. I saw Eleanor leave. Are you okay? I'm fine, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. I told her to leave. I told her I would expose everything. There was a pause. Then Julian said, that took courage. More courage than most people have. It wasn't courage, Elena said. It was necessity. I'm done being afraid. Elena, there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you a long time ago. Elena's heart sank. What is it? Your mother didn't just give you away to protect you, Julian said slowly. She gave you away because she was planning something. A final act of defiance against the organization. She had gathered evidence. Documents, recordings, everything she needed to bring them down. And she hid it. Somewhere only you would be able to find it. Elena's mind raced. Where? I don't know, Julian said. She never told me, but she left clues in her journal. Clues I never understood until now. I think she wanted you to find them, Elena. I think she knew you would be the one to finish what she wrote. Elena looked down at the journal on the coffee table. She had read it cover to cover. but she had been so consumed by the emotional weight of it that she hadn't stopped to look for hidden meanings. She grabbed it now, flipping through the pages, her eyes scanning for anything she might have missed. And then she saw it. A faint, BA Rely visible indentation on the back cover. She pressed her fingers against it, feeling the texture of something hidden beneath the leather. She reached for a knife, CA refully slicing open the seam, and pulled out a thin, folded piece of paper. It was a map. A hand-drawn map of the Sterling estate, with a small X marked in the Giardin. NA the old oak tree. I found it, Elena said, her voice be a whisper. She hid something in the Giardin. At the manor. I'll be right there, Julian said. Don't move. Don't do anything until I arrive. But Elena was already on her feet. Leo in her RMS, the map clutched in her hand. She couldn't wait. She couldn't let anyone else take this from her. This was her mother's legacy, her mother's final gift, and she was going to claim it. She grabbed her keys and ran out the door, ignoring Julian's frantic calls on the phone. The streets were quiet, the city asleep. She hailed a cab and gave the driver the address, her heart pounding with a desperate, urgent energy. When she arrived at the Sterling estate, the gates were unlocked. She walked through them, her footsteps echoing in the silent night, and made her way to the Giardin. The old oak tree loomed in the darkness, its branches reaching Tawa RD the sky like skeletal fingers. She knelt at the base of the tree, her hands digging into the cold, damp earth. Leo squirmed in her RMS, but she held him tight, her fingers scraping against the dirt until they hit something solid. A metal box, rusted and covered in mud. She pulled it out, her hands trembling, and wiped away the soil. The lock was old, rusted shut. She found a rock and smashed it, her strength surprising even herself. The box opened with a groan, revealing a stack of documents, a handful of photographs, and a small velvet pouch. Elena opened the pouch and a ring fell out, a simple gold band, engraved with the words, asterisk, forever my heart, asterisk, her mother's wedding ring. The ring she had worn when she married James. Elena looked through the documents. They were detailed records of the organization's crimes. Money laundering, bribery, murder, names, dates, amounts. Everything her mother had gathered over the years, hidden away for the day when someone would finally have the courage to use it. Elena took a deep breath, a strange calm settling over her. This was it, the weapon she needed to destroy the people who had destroyed her family. Not just for revenge, for justice, for the future. She heard footsteps behind her and spun around, ready to fight. But it was Julian, his face pale with worry, his eyes wide as he saw the box in her hands. You found it, he breathed. I found it, Elena said, her voice steady. And now I'm going to use it. Julian shook his head, stepping closer. Elena, if you release this, you will be STA rooting a war. The organization will come after you. They will come after Leo. There is no going back. I know, Elena said, looking down at Leo, who had fallen asleep in her RMS, his tiny face peaceful and trusting. But I'm not the one who STA root this war. They did. And I'm going to finish it. Julian STA read at her, a complex mixture of fear and admiration in his eyes. You really are your mother's daughter. Elena smiled, a sad, knowing smile. I know, and I'm proud of it. She stood up, the box tucked under her arm, and looked out over the Sterling estate. The mansion loomed in the distance, a symbol of everything she had been forced to fight against. But it was also a symbol of the legacy she was reclaiming. Not the legacy of power and corruption, the legacy of strength, love, and defiance that her mother had passed down to her. Tomorrow, Elena said, her voice echoing in the quiet night. Tomorrow, I will release these documents. I will bring the organization down. And I will finally be free. Julian stepped up beside her, his hand finding hers. And after that, Elena looked at him, her gaze steady, her resolve unshakable. After that, I'm going to raise my son. I'm going to build a life for us. A real life. Without fear, without secrets, without running. Julian squeezed her hand, his eyes meeting hers. I want to be part of that life, if you'll let me. Elena hesitated. Trusting him had always been the rightest part. But she thought of her mother's journal, of the words that had been written in love and pain. She thought of Leo, of the future she was fighting so hard to build. And she thought of Julian, who had made mistakes, but who had also sacrificed so much to protect her. I don't know if I can trust you, she said softly, but I'm willing to try. For Leo, for my mother, for the family we could have been. Julian's smile was radiant, a weight visibly lifting from his shoulders. That's all I can ask. They stood together in the garden, the stars above them, the future uncertain but full of possibility. Elena looked down at the ring in her hand, the gold glinting in the moonlight. She slipped it onto her finger, and for the first time in both her lives, she felt whole as she looked at the ring. She remembered a line from her mother's journal, written on one of the very first pages. Asterisk, the only way out is through. The only way to win is to refuse to lose. Asterisk. Elena smiled. She had refused to lose. She had fought through the darkness, through the pain, through the fear. And now, standing on the grounds of the estate that had once been her prison, she was finally free. She turned to Julian, Leo still sleeping peacefully in her RMS. Let's go home, she said. He nodded, and together, they walked away from the mansion, Tawa RD the CAR, Tawa RD the future. Elena didn't look back. She didn't need to. The past was behind her, and the present was hers to shape. The documents would be released. The organization would fall. Justice would be served. And Elena Sterling, born of pain and forged in fire, would finally have the life she had always deserved. A life of love, of strength, and of hope. A life that she would never take for granted. Not again. The end was only the beginning.